Hello and welcome to Mortgage Solutions TV. I'm Paula John, Editor-in-Chief of Mortgage Solutions, and I'm joined by Andy Mason, Head of Strategic Partnerships and Housing at Lloyds Banking Group. We're here to discuss the future of UK society and the role of the housing market going forward, and specifically LBG's stated purpose, helping Britain recover. So, Andy, what does helping Britain recover mean to people from a housing perspective?
Helping Britain recover is Lloyds Banking Group's commitment to support people recovering post-pandemic. You may remember that our purpose has typically been helping Britain prosper, and I think it's right actually to change to this after this period to more of a helping Britain recover. Importantly, we've made some public commitments in 5 areas relating to this, and 2 of them actually directly relate to housing. And as we know, housing is really important to people, and we feel is an important part in terms of helping Britain recover. We've always been a huge supporter of the housing market, as you know, and we think we're well placed actually to look beyond the commercial opportunities in the housing market and start to think about what some of the fundamental societal problems are in the housing market that are challenging to people when they're trying to find their first homes. You know, I think personally that people have a right to be able to live somewhere comfortable, somewhere safe, but there's still far too many people today that are either living in homes that are not meeting a decent standard or genuinely struggling to get themselves that first step onto the housing ladder. So we're trying to help people, and we spend a lot of time thinking about the problems, and we think there are kind of 3 key areas that we can help people on. So the first one is thinking about the people who don't want to buy a home or may struggle permanently to get onto the housing ladder. So creating a high quality rental sector is a really important area of focus. The second area is around supply. So we think that we need to do much more to improve the quality, the safety and the sustainability of homes. Quality and safety should go without saying, but increasingly we want to help people save money and live more comfortably in environmentally sustainable homes. So that's a really important area. And then I think, as we know, one of the biggest challenges of getting on the ladder is about the ability to save deposits or the ability to get a mortgage big enough. So we think providing buyers, first-time buyers in particular, with more options to help get them on the housing ladder is our third really important area of focus.
So as you mentioned, the private rental sector is very important, but actually people do in the main still want to own homes. But what are the societal benefits of home ownership as you see it?
The benefits are huge, actually, and life-changing. There's lots of research that shows that the difference between owning a home or renting for the whole of your life can actually easily get up to the figure of over £1 million different across people's lifetime. So if you think about owning your own home and paying it off before you retire relative to having to rent your own home all the way through retirement, there's a huge financial benefit. So in terms of long-term wealth and social mobility, that's the most obvious benefit. I think then, though, there's some equally important benefits that are slightly more nuanced. And if you think of your background and the home that you were brought up in, and the environment you were brought up in, there's some very nuanced benefits. So things like owning your own home has definite proven benefits of physical and mental well-being. There's a clear link between home ownership and better outcomes for children. Again, think to that point of bringing children up in a stable background. We see better education outcomes, and we see things like lower teenage pregnancies from people who come from backgrounds of home ownership. And then I think there's the community area, and you'll see this. Communities with high levels of home ownership. Typically, people take more pride in them. So you walk around these areas, you may see community garden schemes. You'll certainly see things like neighbourhood watch, so there's lower levels of crime. And you start to see more local businesses as people invest in their community and make these places much better places to live. So there's a lot of home ownership benefits to people and communities.
And obviously still a lot of obstacles to getting on that ladder. Now, it's some years since the Bank of Mum and Dad became the equivalent of a top 10 mortgage lender, as we know. Thousands of those parents with cash or equity in their own homes have helped their kids to get on the property ladder in recent years. But that's only emphasised the growing gap between the haves and the have-nots, the have-wealthy parents and the have-not-wealthy parents, maybe. What could be done to help those who simply don't have the family financial support to buy their first home?
It's a huge problem, Paula, and something we've thought about a lot. I mean, and the phrase haves and have-nots is really important, because if we're not careful, people who either have wealthy parents or people who are already on the property ladder, happy days, they're in a great position. But the people who are struggling in private rental sector to save a deposit to get a mortgage, with every house price inflation report that comes out, it gets more and more challenging to the people who are not on the property ladder already. It's interesting to think about savings. So first of all, how do we help people save more? And a lot of people don't have rich parents. About 40% of people only have enough savings to get through a month if they lost their income. So there's an awful lot of the population who are nowhere near having a deposit to help there. So clearly we need to think about different ways of supporting those people, especially as they've been paying rent for a number of years. And the strange thing is that, in many occasions, people can say I've paid an awful lot of rent for the last 5 years, and the mortgage that they could get could effectively be cheaper than that rent. But because of affordability rules, we say, I'm sorry, we don't feel you can afford that payment, which is just a strange outcome. So we definitely need to think about innovation. And I think one of the areas that's really helpful would be shared ownership. Shared ownership allows people to save a smaller deposit. They can get a smaller mortgage. They can own some of their home, and then they can start to benefit from equity growth and possibly then staircase up to full home ownership over time. And it just puts home ownership more within reach of the people who are genuinely struggling, either from an affordability or a deposit basis. So one key area of focus, I think, shared ownership. I think there are also other schemes that we need to innovate on. So we need to get better at helping people save sooner. And things like shared equity schemes are also helpful, but perhaps not as helpful as shared ownership to the people who are genuinely struggling from an affordability perspective today.
And obviously it's been around for a while, but if you're intending to put a rocket under shared ownership, that's got to be a good thing. Different question. Should mortgage advisors, lenders, maybe even estate agents and other people involved in the whole property market, should we all be more vocal about sustainability and the energy efficiency of properties? Should everyone be pointing out the issue of running costs to home buyers? And should lenders lend more on new build because they're more affordable to run? So when you run the affordability calculations, could you lend more on new build?
So the first question, yes, more people should be talking about the benefits of sustainability. It's a hot topic for lenders. It's a hot topic for Lloyds Banking Group. But actually, we're not naive enough to think we can fix this on our own. Thinking of the house purchase journey, I put myself in a builder's shoes, for example, as a starter. Why wouldn't they be selling the benefits of this modern home relative to the leaky Victorian terrace that I've got, whether that's around affordability of bills, whether it's around the need not to spend lots of money getting it up to standards of energy efficiency in the future, or even just comfort of living in the place, and things like electric charge points for vehicles. How are we going to sort all those out in the future in houses like mine? So definitely it starts, I think, with buying the new home, and that would include estate agents. I think then we need to encourage more conversations in the mortgage journey. So increasingly we're seeing green mortgage products available. That should be an encouragement, I think, to brokers to at least have the conversation with customers about the benefits of thinking about the energy efficiency rating when they're buying a home, whether used or new. So definitely there. And then I think that will encourage lenders, and lenders are already playing the part in offering better deals for sustainable properties. Now, your last point on affordability, I think, is a really interesting one. Typically you could save, let's say, £50 to £100 per month, probably £100 max, more like £50 per month, if you're in an energy efficient property over a really inefficient one. I personally think we should be reflecting that in our affordability calculations. And if that happens, again, it will be another encouragement to lenders, to home buyers, to say this is another reason to think about sustainability of homes. So the answer is yes to all of your questions.
Well, in the same vein, actually, carrying on, because sustainability is so important, how can we as an industry encourage people to spend more money on making existing properties more efficient? The government's brought in some schemes, but should it be doing more? And do lenders have a part to play in that?
Yeah, definitely. And it's a huge challenge. So I think we know the story. 20% of UK carbon emissions come from homes. People typically don't wake up every morning thinking, I've got to do more to green my home. The problem is the cost of doing this is high. So typically you need to spend about £20,000 on a retrofit of an old property to get it up to an APC rating B or higher, C or higher. So it's really difficult. And the savings on the back of that, the business case doesn't stack up in the short term, because, as I said, you can probably save, let's say £50 to £100 if you're lucky per month on energy bills. So it's a really difficult equation to encourage people to do things. And we've seen from the Green Homes grant from the government that even when, I'll call it free money, is available to help people do this in terms of retrofitting, it didn't work. And I think a part of that was about consumer demand. I think also a part of it was about the complexity of how to go about making the changes and understanding what you need to do. A lot of people don't even get that bit. And the third bit was availability of people that you can trust to come round and do the work. And as yet, I don't think the supply chain of fitters is in place that we can trust to fit the right technology in homes. So there's a lot of things to do. I think the government have a central role in terms of education and in terms of supporting the funding. But I think, again, all of the people involved in the house buying process, or the mortgage process in particular, have a role to play. So if people are talking about home improvement loans, it's a perfect opportunity to say, while you've got the bonnet up, so to speak, have you thought about your insulation in your home? Have you thought about doing this extension in a much more environmentally friendly way? So definitely we have a role to play to encourage people to take the right action.
And finally, Andy, how do you envision the whole Helping Britain Recover campaign core strategy for LBG? How is that going to impact the intermediary and wider markets?
And it's a huge thing. We've talked about everything from supply to sustainability to different mortgage products. And we're not naive enough to think Lloyds Banking Group can fix this on our own. So this is a market, a requirement of the market to adapt and to change to the things that we're talking about. So I think, if we think of all of what I've talked about, it's about actually providing more people with access to better quality homes. That could be rental. We'd also like more people to buy. So effectively, if we get this right, the market should be bigger. More people will be able to get that first step onto the property ladder. We should get more people thinking about spending on their properties and improving properties. And clearly we can see that if we encourage a lot of people to do that, there's benefits for many people in the housing and the mortgage market today. It's just a big question, and I think we all need to play a big part in encouraging some of the behaviours that I've talked about, and some of the changes that will drive a better outcome for society as a whole, in particular people and their housing needs.
Andy Mason, thank you very much for talking to me about Helping Britain Recover. That's all from us. Thank you for watching Mortgage Solutions Television. Goodbye.